Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name's Sam, I'm the Marketing Manager for the Oxford MBA here at Side Business School, and today I'm joined by Liz Starbuck Greer, our MBA Program Director.
Hi everyone.
Before we get started, I just want to quickly check that everyone can hear us okay. If a couple of you wouldn't mind just typing yes in the box just so that we can make sure you can hear us. Awesome, thank you for that. Great, everyone can hear us loud and clear, that's wonderful. Excellent. We'll get started. We are joined by Liz today, who's going to talk through a few things and then open up to any questions that you have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sam. Well, welcome everyone. It's really nice to be able to speak to you today. I know that you've all been admitted to the program throughout the year. So for those of you who were admitted in stage 1, it probably feels like a long time since you were going through that process, whereas it is a little bit more recent for those of you who were admitted in stage 2. But welcome to you all. I'm really excited to get the chance to walk you through our program in more detail. So I'm going to start by talking to you a little bit about, I guess, my personal view of the Oxford MBA as program director, what I feel we're trying to achieve here. I'm then going to go through that structure of the program, and we're going to take this in quite some detail, term by term, just to give you more of a sense of what it will feel like to be part of the MBA experience next year. And then we'll finish with some time for questions, if you have them, and also just a sort of overview of what some of your next steps might be in terms of accessing more information about the program or how we're going to contact you in the future. So that's our sort of broad overview of what we're doing here today. So starting with my view of the Oxford MBA, one of the most exciting parts of being a program director is the opportunity to choose a program to work with where you feel that the values of that program and that school are really reflective of your own personal values. So I've been working in higher education and in business schools in particular for a long time, and I've developed a really clear idea of the type of program that I believe in and that I want to direct and support. And so it's been great for me to come in and take over the directorship of the Oxford MBA this year. I just joined the team in September, because I really feel like this program does reflect those values, and I hope that when you come and join us next year, you'll feel that it reflects your values too. So when you speak to any other MBA program, as I'm sure you have done in your process of deciding whom to apply to, you'll hear lots of the similar messages. So, people will talk to you about the type of technical skill development that you'll get through their MBA. So, we all help you develop your skills in accounting and finance and tech and ops, those kind of areas. And they'll talk to you a lot about the career development opportunities that they have. And all of those factors are really an important part of every MBA program. I want to just take a little bit of a high-level view and describe the kind of graduate that we're seeking to develop here at Oxford, because I think that will give you really a sense of all of the different activities that we invest in, why we invest in those activities. And so essentially, we are looking to develop future leaders who are resilient, collaborative, transformational, and purposeful. Purposeful is a really important word for us here at Oxford, with the ability to operate in a digital world and on a global scale. So that's what we're aiming to do. And so all the elements of our programming, which we'll go through today, should be contributing to your development as a leader in that frame. The other thing that's really, I think, special about the Oxford MBA is that we do that by bringing together really diverse groups of people. So, there are specialized MBAs in the world, for example, that will look at sustainability or, technology, and they will bring together people who all have a specific interest in that area. We're quite different. We have strengths in a number of key areas, but our model of change is to bring together as diverse a group as we can to have challenging conversations. So, we really believe that the future challenges for big business and society are immense. They are huge. And in order to create change, we need to challenge each other and engage with one another across sectors and across geographies. So if you've started engaging with your fellow admitted students already, you'll know that you're an incredibly diverse group. And that's really very deliberate in terms of our curation of the class. It's really challenging too. You will disagree. You'll have different ways of working. You'll have different experiences, attitudes, approaches to problems. And that will be a learning experience for you. And sometimes it will be painful, but ultimately it should be hugely rewarding. And I think if you look back on your MBA experience in 10 or 15 years' time, you'll really see the value of the diversity of conversations that you were able to have here at Oxford. And then the final aspect of the Oxford MBA, which I think is really special, is the way in which we are able to connect you to the broader university environment. So there's something really important about being part of Oxford University. We are the Saïd Business School. The majority of your teaching will happen here in the business school and will be business focused. But we're part of a much broader interdisciplinary, research-led, world-leading university, and there are lots of opportunities for you to engage with that broader community. So primarily through your college, you'll have college membership, which will allow you to speak to fellows and students from across disciplines and really get a much richer educational experience from that. There are initiatives like the Oxford Foundry, which is also deliberately university-wide. So bringing together different types of people, even beyond that diverse group that we already have in the MBA. So that's what we're trying to achieve here at Oxford. Now let's walk through the structure of the programme. Now, in terms of where you are in your journey, I imagine you're starting to really think about the details of what next year will look like. So let's think about this term by term. So we'll go firstly to Michaelmas term. So very much Oxford terminology here. In other places, you might call this the autumn term or the fall term. Here it's the Michaelmas term, and that's where you start with us. So you'll come in September to do your launch. So launch is a 2-week program. You see it here referred to on the slide as launch and leadership. It's a 2-week program that we run, which will introduce you to all of the key aspects of your study here at Oxford. So it's somewhat of an orientation, as you'd expect, a chance to get to know your teammates and your broader cohort. And we also start then to think about some of the sort of fundamental leadership skills that you're going to be developing through the program. So there will be different opportunities to engage with leadership right from the start. And we also connect you into a number of different activities that are happening across Oxford. So again, it's that embeddedness with the wider university. It's really 2 very kind of fun-packed weeks, so you'll get the opportunity to do lots of different things and really break the ice with the colleagues that you're going to be spending the next year with. Then we move into the term proper, and you can see that we're structured around 2 blocks in each term. So the first courses that you get access to will be organisational behaviour, tech and ops, and accounting. And these faculty work very closely together. So the intent for that first block is that you are looking at problems through these different lenses. So there will be a certain amount of integration between the classes, and your assessment there will also be integrated. So you'll have the opportunity to consider sort of case studies and challenges from the organisational behaviour lens, from the tech and op lens, and also through accounting. And so that's a really good deep dive into MBA teaching in that first term. You'll then move into what we call our integrative module. So we have this sort of break where you do something slightly different, and this is the module that we call Global Rules of the Game. So there's a chance there to think more broadly about business and society and how you might tackle larger scale problems when you begin to develop your leadership career even further. So really looking at different actors in society and negotiating at a high level. So you do that in a sort of week format, so it's a little bit more intense, it's slightly different to your other classes, and provides a bit of a break in the term where you can reflect on what you've learned already so far. And then you finish the term with 3 more core courses: analytics, business finance, and marketing. Another thing to note through this term is that you'll also be engaging in lots of different co-curricular activities. And this is something that really is very much led by you, by your choices and where you want to focus during the first term. So don't be surprised if you feel a little bit overwhelmed by the options and the information that you're provided before you come to Saïd and in that first term, because there is a lot going on here. We looked at what we call the notional learning hours for the program, and it works out in terms of purely class attendance and study and preparation for assessment. You're looking at sort of close to 50 hours a week on our MBA program. And then on top of that, you'll have your co-curricular choices and your career development. So just know from the start that you can't do everything. This is one of the things that really challenges our students when they first join us, is this, we call it Oxford FOMO, so fear of missing out. There are literally sort of 10 things going on at Oxford every day that you could be engaged in, and you won't be able to do all of them. So Michaelmas term will probably feel a little bit overwhelming as you figure out where you're going to have the most impact and where you want to focus your time. And of course, depending on your educational and your career background, some of these courses will feel much more challenging to you than others. So it's also about balancing those academic requirements with what you want to do in the co-curricular space. Another thing that happens in Michaelmas term is that you begin to choose your electives. So when we move into the next terms, I will talk to you about the elective choices, but it's worth knowing that really it's only a few weeks into your time with us that you begin to be asked to make decisions about electives. So again, lots going on in this first term, and I think this really sort of hammers home the fact that this is a one-year program. And so anything you can do to arrive in the program prepped, feeling ready, knowing sort of what you want to achieve at the end, even if it's just a plan that you then tear up and throw down over the year, having done that preparation will really stand you in good stead when it comes to getting through this first really busy term. So let's look at Hilary term now, which is what we call the term after Christmas break, so January through to March. Here the program starts to shift slightly. So you still have some core courses, firms and markets and strategy. But you start on a couple of the sort of really special elements of the program. So this is where you begin your go-to journey, global opportunities and threats, Oxford. I'm sure having got to the stage of being admitted students, you've read and thought a lot about go-to because it is one of the sort of really unique factors of our program. But this is the point where you will get together in teams to tackle a world scale challenge. So this year, our groups have been looking at climate change. In previous years, we've looked at healthcare, at energy, at water, really big global challenges, and trying to think about all the different aspects of that challenge that the world is facing, approaching it from a systems thinking perspective, and then drilling down into how you might solve one of the aspects of that very significant challenge. So it's a very intensive program. It's really hard, I'll be honest. It is very different to much of the other teaching that you'll experience here and that you've probably experienced in your undergraduate days. There's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of time spent on your own as a team trying to figure out what direction you want to go in, and that can be frustrating and challenging as well. So this can be a tough start to the term, but the nature of the topic that we look at is always something that is really, I think, very inspiring and that people can get behind as something that they'd like to help solve. So although it is challenging in lots of different ways, the end product where you get to present on a potential solution to an aspect of something like climate change is just hugely rewarding. Then when we move into the second half of Hilary term, you'll be continuing with Go-To, so that's ongoing. You'll also start your entrepreneurship project. So in terms of our team development, I think it's a good time to talk to you about that a little bit. In the first term, you have your organisational behaviour core, as we discussed, and you'll have a study team that will be established by the programme for that course. You don't get any choice in that study team. We set those teams up to sort of primarily for diversity and also for obviously kind of balance in the program in terms of numbers of people per team. When you move into Go-To, you'll have the option to select the aspect of the challenge that you're most interested in. So for example, with climate change this year, you could have selected to look at agriculture particularly, or cities. So there were a number of different tracks you could have selected. Once you select that track, we'll then choose you a team from within that. So you can see that the team process, the team formation process, is developing a little bit. First of all, you had no control. In this second team, you have some control because you're choosing an aspect that you're interested in. And so you're coming into a team where you all have a certain level of interest in the topic. When you move into the entrepreneurship project, the teams are completely self-selecting. So at that point, you're talking to your colleagues in the cohort and trying to figure out who has a working style that works with you, who's interested in the same kind of topic or problem, how you think you can bring together a dynamic team environment to complete your entrepreneurship project. So there's a real escalation of teamwork skills that are involved through the program. You'll also see that the diagram shows you in the second block of Hilary term 2 elective choices. So I'm just going to sort of put a little red flag on that for you now, in that we're making a couple of changes to the program. So the electives that you're offered in this stage might be different to ones you may have seen or heard from colleagues of previous cohorts. So just be careful if you're starting to plan ahead as to what electives you might want, and that we will make some changes for next year. One of those electives that's available is for sure going to be what we call a Core Plus elective. So that's where we have a smaller group of electives, 3, that you can choose from, which extend your core subject matter. So you can choose a sort of direction from within the core courses as to an area that you want to develop further. So it might be Business Finance Plus, it might be Leading Digital Transformation, or it might be Strategies and Impact. So that's our Hillary term, and then we will move into Trinity term, which is April to June. Now, at the start of Trinity term, you can see it listed as week 0. We have the international electives. So when you're choosing your electives, one of the options that you have is to choose an international elective. And I'm sure, again, that you've seen our marketing material on the international electives. I'm really hoping to extend those for next year and give some different international options as well, but that's still to be worked through. So we know for sure that we will be offering the electives that we have currently in the program. So at the moment, we're going to South Africa, we go to the USA to New York, and that's got a particular marketing media focus. And then, although it's not an international elective, in the same sort of time frame, we do an elective in London on fintech. So those are the international electives. And then you move more fully into your term, which is focused on electives. So this is where you get much more choice around your study. So you remember that I mentioned we make these choices in Michaelmas term. So at that time, you will be choosing one of the Core Plus electives and 5 electives in Trinity term, and then 2 in the summer. So we'll move through to the summer term eventually. We have a points-based system here, and you'll get to hear all about that when you arrive, but you bid certain points for an electives to make sure that we are allocating elective spaces as fairly as possible. And I'm sure you'll have seen on our website some of the options that we commonly offer as electives, and it's a really exciting part of the year when you get to specialise a little bit, and where our faculty also get to deliver some of the subjects that they're really passionate about and have sort of research interests or considerable professional expertise in. So it's a really exciting time. You'll also see here in Trinity that this is the first option for you to undertake an internship for credit. So we have 2 points in the programme where you can do that. This is very much a student-led activity. So internships are advertised through our Careers Centre and through many of the other parts of the school, like the Skull Centre. And you obviously would apply to those. If you're successful, you then have to complete some paperwork to make sure that we can give you the academic credit for that opportunity. So we'll work through that with you when you arrive with us. But this is the first opportunity of 2 to gain credit for an internship. If you take this first opportunity, stream 1, if you're successful in securing the internship, you do have to come back in the summer to complete the remainder of your electives. So you'll just balance your elective portfolio slightly differently, doing fewer electives in a Trinity term, and obviously getting credit for the internship, and then filling up the remainder of your credit load in the summer term, which we also call the long vacation. So if we just flip to that final part of the year, July to September. And I think it's really important to note for you all here that this is a 12-month program. We're very clear about that. There is a change in workload as you go through the year. Of course, there are peaks and troughs, and depending on how you manage those credits and whether you are on internship in the summer, it will feel different, but it is a full-time program from September to September. So it's really important that you are prepared for that and that you don't come and see me in May, June, July talking about how you actually need to finish the program early, because in general, we do expect you to be here for the full 12 months. So you can see here electives, internship for credit. Also, there's a block that you'll see that says SCP. So that's the Strategic Consulting Project. I know that many of you are interested in that as an option. That is where we as a school work with clients who are interested in having a team of MBAs come and solve a strategic problem for them. So acting really as a group of consultants. I would say it's a fairly niche opportunity in that although many people are interested in it when they're admitted to the program, actually once they work through the options that they have available to them, really exciting, interesting electives, the possibility of internship, it then becomes a smaller number of students who actually take up those strategic consulting projects. But that is certainly there as an opportunity for you in the summer term. And we'll begin working with you much earlier in the year to talk to you about the specific opportunities we have, which companies, what the project is, so that you can make an informed decision about how you want to spend your summer. And then we finish the program with capstone. And that's where you come back to us for a few days of sort of, I guess, celebratory activity, but also learning activity that brings together the whole learning experience for you. So it's a really nice opportunity for you to really have that final piece of engagement with your cohort, to think and reflect on what you've learned through the year, and then we'll finish with our completion ceremony at the end of capstone. So I think that's everything I wanted to share with you about the flow of the year. I hope that that clarifies somewhat what the experience might be like. Obviously, there's so much more to it in terms of the rich layers of co-curricular and career development work that we'll be doing alongside this. We did have a question in advance of the webinar about some specifics around the career development piece. And we are just scheduling a webinar to cover off career development, which I think we're hoping to get scheduled for March, did you say, Sam? Yeah. So that will be upcoming. So please do keep an eye out for that. There's so much detail that we couldn't possibly cover it all in this one webinar. So colleagues from the careers team will walk you through the various different career development programs that exist alongside this curriculum map that I've just laid out for you today. Okay. So before we move to questions, I'll just quickly cover your next steps. So as I said at the start, I do want to acknowledge that for some of you, it feels like probably a long time since you made your decision to come to Oxford, and you're still waiting for it to start. So don't worry, we're getting there. It's nearly time for things to get moving for you. You will start to receive information from two sources. The program managers and the careers team, and that will typically start happening, I think it's about 10 weeks out from the program, so you're looking at sort of June time when you'll start to receive communications. And it's worth knowing that particularly on the careers side, there are things that they're going to ask you to do. So they're going to ask you to really start getting prepared for your career journey. It's only a year. It's a short time. So they're going to ask you to do lots of different activities that will help get you ready when you come into the start of the program to really begin that career journey. And the program managers similarly will be giving you lots of practical information about the steps that you need to take to make sure you're here, you have everything organized for your sort of personal life that will support you on the program. Obviously, the sooner you can get here to Oxford, if you're coming from overseas, the better, in the sense of having that time to actually acclimatise to Oxford, figure out where you live, how to get from where you live to where you need to study. There's lots of practical aspects that can be really challenging if you're trying to absorb that alongside the early weeks of term. So I would encourage you to think about when you're going to be able to arrive in Oxford and when you can sort out all your practical arrangements. Please do keep an eye on our student blogs. They'll give you lots of insight from a student perspective onto the whole journey. And if you have any questions at all, please email them to Oxford MBA at. Our team will either answer them or they will pass you on to the right person who can. So I know there's a very lively Telegram group, which of course you're welcome to join. That is student run, student led entirely, so the school doesn't have access to that and doesn't get involved in that. But if you feel comfortable sharing your information with that group and you'd like to engage with the outgoing students, please feel free to do so. I would just say, of course, to remember that the program does change year on year. So the best source of information is the team here. So if you have any particularly important questions that you want to get answered, please do email us directly to make sure that you've got accurate information. Okay, so that's everything from me. I think we've got time now for questions, so we'll just take a look and see what's coming in.
So we did have a few questions sent through beforehand, so thank you to those of you who did do that. One of the questions we could answer is a little bit more detail about the consulting development program, specifics around what the course entails and resources from the consulting industry. So we could speak a little bit about that now, but you will get a lot more information about that when you do join from the program team, because it does change year on year.
I think one of the things I would draw on that, so the Consulting Development Program is run by our Careers Centre, and so it's very much part of their strategy to help enable you to get the job roles that you're looking for. What's particularly important, I think, about the Consulting Development Program and all of these sort of complementary programs that the Career Service runs is that they're very connected to the Oxford Business Networks. So this is something we haven't spoken about today, but we have something called Oxford Business Network, or OBN. You'll hear that referred to a lot. And those are student-led organizations that focus on key career areas. So we have a consulting OBN. And what that means is that when you arrive as a student, you'll be asked fairly early on to indicate any of the OBNs that you want to join. Maybe it's finance, maybe it's consulting, maybe it's global business. And you can, of course, join as many as you like. You'll also be offered the opportunity to take a leadership role in any one of those OBNs, and your classmates will vote on the co-chairs of the OBNs. And then those OBNs work very closely with the careers team. So in something like the careers development program, the careers lead will work with the consulting OBN to think and talk about the student needs in this area and to make sure there's sharing of information and good practice and guest speakers that are relevant to those particular students. Excuse me.
We have had a couple more questions come through as well. So someone has asked, can we get PPOs if we perform well during internships? Would you mind clarifying what a PPO is? I assume it's a permanent place offer, or I'm not too sure, I haven't come across that acronym before. But in terms of getting a job offer out of an internship, that is completely possible. It would really just depend on the company that you did your internship at. If they were looking for a full-time role, pre-placement offer, thank you for that. If they were looking for a full-time role to be filled after that, it's completely up to each individual internship. We wouldn't be able to say yes or no at this stage, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think another point that's relevant to that is that if you do secure post-program employment with your internship employer, which is of course the dream, that's the idea, you would have to have a separate contract for that. And of course, don't forget that you do still have to fulfill your requirements on the program. So it may be a case, depending on when you've done the internship, of coming back and doing the relevant credits and then moving on to your full-time employment.
We've also had another one come through now saying, what's something we can do now to better prepare for the course?
Yeah, so this is an interesting area, and I'm doing some work now as a program director on preparatory materials, because it's not something that we've done previously here at Oxford, or if not recently at least. So I'm working with some faculty here to see if there is something that we can be doing to better prepare you for specific courses. I would say there's lots of different preparatory courses out there, and I think it's important that you take some time to reflect on where your strengths and weaknesses are and where your areas of expertise are. So, for example, if maybe you didn't do as well on the quantitative aspect of the GMAT as you'd hoped, you might want to brush up on some of those core quantitative skills. If you have no experience of accounting and finance, maybe a little bit of reading around that subject. And this is not essential. I mean, our expectation is that you're going to come in and we're going to teach you these skills. But there's a lot going on in that first term. And so if there are things that you think it would help with your confidence to have read around the subject beforehand, then I think that's absolutely worth doing. I would also say that those practical aspects of coming to do an MBA program are really important. So it's very easy to kind of forget how much it can take an emotional and sort of psychological toll on you to move to a new city, potentially a new country, to be doing something so different and so stressful. And so anything you can do to think about how you're going to handle that, your own resiliency, what your support networks are going to be, and to make sure you have those practical aspects already sort of thought through before you join us, the better.
Yeah, and just to add to that, that's a question that is often asked when we have student panels, if it's maybe at our open day or our interview days, or if we do a student webinar. And one thing that does come up a lot as well is a lot of students actually advise that you take some time off before you join. Really use that time to recharge, travel, maybe if that's something you've been considering for a little while and this is maybe the perfect time to do it before you have a really intense year. So yeah, I would definitely advise checking out some of the blogs on the MBA blog site do refer to advice before coming on the course, and maybe talk through doing a little bit of travel or doing the student treks before coming, because I think getting that out of your system before you arrive here so you're ready to focus and can't just hear Europe calling you from an hour's flight away can really help you to kind of sink your teeth in when you get here.
And we've had a few other questions here about the labs. So the school offers a number of labs, and that was what I was loosely referring to when I talked about co-curricular opportunities. You'll hear many of them referred to as labs. So finance lab, impact lab, creative destruction lab. These are run by different centres within the school, and they each have very different kind of strategies and application processes. So it's important that you check out the website and get as much information as you can if you're interested in attending or joining any one of the labs. And they do have different admissions policies. Of course, you can always email our inbox if you find you can't discover that information, or you find it confusing, or you've got questions. So please do that. And in terms of when the labs are delivered, they are delivered outside of term time. So our curriculum is quite heavily congested, as I'm sure you can imagine. You should expect really to be in class from 9 to 5, Monday to Thursday in Michaelmas term. And then your career development activities will primarily happen on the Friday. Some of those will be mandatory, and some of those will be optional, depending on what you're hoping to achieve, what your career journey is. And then the labs happen in the evening. So finance lab, for example, is currently on a Monday evening. So you can see if you're doing finance lab or impact lab, you're going to have a long day in class. You're going to stay all evening, and then you're going to come back in for class the next day. So you do need to think about that resilience and your own well-being, how you're going to manage that. It's only a year, and you're going to want to get the most out of it that you can, but you also need to take care of yourself as well. So I think there's a couple of questions here I can take. So there's a question here around FT rankings. So I'll tackle that one next. I mean, I'm sure you all know that we went down in the FT rankings this year, which was very disappointing for all of us involved in the program, and particularly disappointing because it indicated that specific group of alumni hadn't achieved as high salaries as we would have hoped that they had. So I don't know how much you all know about the FT rankings criteria. They're quite complex, but essentially the primary group that was surveyed for the FT rankings this year was the class of 2015 and 16. So, we're quite a way out from that class, and, still kind of disappointed that they didn't achieve as high on the salaries as some other alumni did from other programs that year. But there's a number of things that have changed since then. So we're feeling really good about the service that we offer and the program that we offer. And particularly, I would say, our career service has doubled in size since that class graduated. So, that there's a great kind of deal to see that's developed and grown since that class did graduate. So we're hopeful of improved rankings position in the future. I will say we don't make decisions on the program on the basis of how we think it will impact us in the rankings. The rankings are important to us because they are a way for you to get validated information that has been audited by a third party. And I believe that's really important. You have access to that information for us and for all other schools, so that you're able to make proper decisions based on real information and not just what we've told you in our marketing material. So in that sense, it's very important for me that every year we have an accurate return to the FT rankings, and that we focus on getting that data right. However, we will always make decisions based on the school that we want to be and our values, and so that it's important that we maintain that, and we have no sort of plan to deviate from that. So yeah, of course, always hopeful for improved ranking position. Definitely helps our brand, which is your brand, and that's what's important. But we feel very much that the service that we offer and the program that we offer is really strong, and that the data that's in the FT is somewhat dated. So for a school that develops as quickly as we do and innovates as much as we do, it's relatively old performance data now. So that's where we are, I think, on the rankings. What else have we got coming in, Sam?
So someone has asked if all scholarship decisions have been sent out, and do we have any advice for the scholarships of the university and the colleges? So in terms of advice for the scholarships of university and the colleges, I'm not sure if everyone on this webinar has listened to our previous scholarships webinars. It's definitely more intended for people before they've applied, but it still could be useful. So after this, when I send around the webinar recording for this, I'll also send around the previous scholarships one and give just a tiny bit more information about that. But in terms of the decisions for stage 1 and stage 2?
So sets of decisions have already been sent out. However, we have at least 2 more scholarship committee meetings this year, and we continue to consider all candidates at each of those meetings. So just because you perhaps were not successful in the stage 1 or stage 2 scholarship committee meetings, and you would know by now if you had been successful, doesn't mean you're not considered in future. So we continue to consider the full student, prospective student body at each scholarship committee. And there are certain specific scholarships that are awarded differently at set times in the year. So some of those are still upcoming. It depends on what scholarship you're talking about. They do sometimes have specific criteria and timelines, but there are still scholarships available, absolutely.
And we've also had a question asking if we have any indication of how the 2-year post-study visa will affect employer attitudes towards non-EU students. So I'd like to give you a prize for being the first person to nearly mention the Brexit. This is probably the first webinar we've had in a long time where Brexit hasn't come up, so thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. And I think it's a really important issue and completely natural that you're thinking through the consequences of Brexit and of the changes to post-study work visa that are related to that. I mean, I think with all things related to Brexit, you know, we are waiting and seeing what happens. It's a difficult time. The introduction of more welcoming visa regime for students is really great. I mean, we're very, very pleased to see that, and I think it's a response to the desire for British employers from British employers to continue to employ highly skilled young people. You know, there's been a real outcry, I think, from British business that they still want to be able to, you know, secure that talent in their companies, and this is where this comes from. So you know, it's a hugely positive step in the wake of what has felt, I think, for many of us to be quite a negative political time here in our country. So we're really excited to see that, and I think it will, you know, there will be opportunities that come as a result of that for sure. So yeah, we're excited to see that play out.
I think most of the other questions seem to be kind of variations on questions asked previously. Does anyone else have any final thoughts or final questions?
And of course, as we said, if you have questions that, you know, we haven't answered today, or things that come to mind, you know, after the webinar, please do email us and we'll be happy to answer them. Okay. Great question about college decisions. This is one that really happens all the time. You know, we often get queries about college decisions. That process is somewhat outside of our control, but we do try our best to keep in touch with all of our college partners and continue to nudge them forward to make acceptances to our candidates, or to just let us know one way or the other. Of course, they have lots and lots of applicants that they're dealing with. So if you haven't heard about your college yet, or if you've heard that you didn't get your first preference and you're waiting to hear on the next step, please don't worry. I know it's a very anxiety-inducing time, but you will get something soon, and we will keep as much on top of that process as we can. And I know that colleges are now actively looking at those applications if they haven't yet made their decisions. Okay, I had a couple more things come in. We might just finish with.
Are you required to do an internship?
No, you are not required to do an internship, and in fact, the majority of our students choose not to. So it's a very popular option for consideration, but so are our electives. And I think one of the things you'll realize when you come here is that we do have a really good range of electives. So it can be quite tough to decide whether you're going to invest your time in an internship or in the electives, or I mean, in more electives than you would otherwise do. It's very much about your own career development goals and whether you feel like an internship will really help you to get there. And the careers team will be able to give you some good advice on that. So obviously, if you're switching sectors, if you're looking to augment your resume in a different direction, then it makes real sense to do an internship. But for some people, for example, it may make more sense to do the advanced finance electives that we have here, because that might be a much better preparation for you to continue to accelerate a career in finance that you've already had. So there are lots of different ways of approaching that, but you are not required to do an internship. What is the negotiations elective and why is it so popular? Negotiations is one of our perennially popular electives, and we try and put on as many streams as possible because it just never dims in its popularity. It's exactly what it says. It teaches you how to negotiate effectively. It's led by fantastic faculty who have real insight into the practical and sort of applied process of negotiations. There's lots of simulation involved, and yeah, it is always really popular. So yeah, we do try and offer as many streams of negotiations as we can as an elective, but there are lots of other really exciting electives too.
Oh, feels like we're live on the Telegram group. We've got a couple of questions now asking if we can, is it possible to pay the entire fees in one go, or can they be paid over semesters? I'm not actually sure about that. I'm not sure.
I don't know specifically how fees are paid, but that would be that should be on our website, or if not, you can email the inbox and they can confirm what the requirements are.
Yeah, sorry that we can't answer that one, but yeah, feel free to send our Oxford MBA email address an email about that, and they'll check with. It would probably be.
Oh, somebody's telling us now they've already paid a portion of their fees. I'm not sure. So, so we're figuring out live how fees are paid. But please do speak to the team to confirm if you have any questions around the financing of your program. Okay, I mean, I think that probably is all we can cover off today. So one final question has just come through. When can we expect to see the list of electives? You won't see the list of electives in advance of you coming to the program. So those will be confirmed in Michaelmas term prior to you having to make your selection. And the reason for that is that, we do innovate as a business school. And of course, we also are a large employer. We have all the kind of HR aspects that you'd expect of any business, which means that we can't a year and a half in advance require a member of faculty to teach a certain elective at a certain time. So we do wait until we are a bit closer to the time to confirm that list, and it just enables us to be sure we can really deliver on those promises and innovate and bring some new things into the curriculum. If something's been a popular elective previously, it's likely that it will stay unless that particular member of faculty is leaving us or is otherwise unable to teach it. So you can look back at some of the things that we've done in the past. We'll always deliver negotiations. There will always be a mergers and acquisition elective. Those things are pretty key to our programming, but there will be some changes around the edges. So you'll get that information when you join us in Michaelmas time.
Wonderful. I think that's it. Thank you everyone who sent through such nice comments. And thank you everyone for joining us. A huge thank you to Liz for her time and for running through the program. Hopefully you are all really excited about joining us in September, and we can't wait for you to arrive here at Oxford, and we also can't wait for launch week. Even though it's obviously an exciting time for all of you, it's actually really exciting for all of us as well. It's so wonderful to finally see everyone who we've been in contact with over, sometimes months, years.
Very tiring. It's a very tiring 2 weeks, but it's really fun. So yeah, we can't wait to see you again. If I've already met you during the process, I'm really looking forward to having you here on the program, and I'm so looking forward to meeting those of you that I haven't met yet. So thank you for being with us today. Please do come back to us if you need any more information. Keep an eye out on the other webinars that we're going to be developing and hosting over the coming months. And also, watch out for those emails that will start to arrive in your inbox in June, July from careers and from the program managers. There'll be things that you can do there to get a head start on your MBA journey.
Thank you, everyone.